Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the HerStory TV and the HerStory Podcast. This is Gertrude Matcha here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating young woman. Welcome to our tribe. Before I start, I want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. I pay my respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people today. So for those of you who know me, I am normally based in Wellington, New Zealand, but I now have moved to beautiful Melbourne, Australia, and have the privilege of broadcasting these amazing stories from women from all over the world. So this is my way of acknowledging the land that I'm standing on right now and the privilege that I have to be here. I also want to acknowledge my own ancestors, my grandmother, who was an amazing storyteller, my beautiful mother, who was the entrepreneur, who left their DNA in me and their ideas and their life experiences as well. So my next guest, please introduce yourself. Tell us your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me. I'm so blessed to be here. My name is Kaye Parker. I am 31 years old, and I am here in Niagara, Ontario, Canada. I want to talk about my story to break the stigma of miscarriages and my journey through psychological isolation to get to where I am today. It's still a very heartbreaking story to tell. I will pause and I will probably get emotional, and I hope I can resonate with people who are listening today. When I got pregnant with my fourth child, I would have never expected what was coming next. And as every woman who has had a child, you're so excited for your future. You start making plans and you never anticipate for anything to go wrong. It was close to Christmas time and I was at my regular ultrasound. I'll never forget that day. I went in, and just like all the others, my baby looked perfect. Perfect head, perfect body, perfect fingers, perfect toes. And then the technician shut the ultrasound monitor off. I knew something at that point was wrong. I didn't understand. I asked questions and she told me to go straight to my doctor. I was frustrated. I was angry. I obviously knew something was wrong. I didn't hear the heartbeat and I couldn't understand why. I went to my doctor's office immediately after, and when I went into her office, I just was surrounded by people waiting to see her. I went up to her secretary and I was yelling and I said, I'm not going to stand here and wait for somebody to tell me my baby has died. She let me in right away and everything else was a blur. I was blacked out. The only thing I remember is my doctor coming in and telling me that I received divine mercy, and sometimes things happen far greater than our understanding. Shortly after that, my husband at the time was so wonderful and was trying to make me feel better about the situation. And he wanted to see me smile and he wanted to try to make me happy. So we went to get pedicures. I was in a state of shock. I was supposed to be going for a maternity photo shoot. And the photo shoot that I have now has a completely different significance. We were supposed to be going to our children's Christmas play, my daughter's dance recital. I still continue to do those things. life still had to move on, yet I had to mask everything that I was feeling. When the photo shoot happened with Brian Caparici, I will forever treasure those moments. I have these photos of the pain, the resiliency of where I was in that moment when I told that my future was no longer happening. Following the shock of that day, I went to get my blood work done just to verify that the ultrasound was indeed correct, that my son no longer had a heartbeat. I waited for the results. I got a call back, and the status never changed. The levels kept on increasing. I was so excited. I was like, oh my goodness, the technician was wrong. And I remember writing in my journal how excited I was. And then we had to go for a follow-up ultrasound. There was still no growth, still no heartbeat. The emotions that I had to go through of thinking that I had a hope and a chance that my baby would still be alive. I remember laying in my bed every single night, being afraid to move to the left or to the right, holding my stomach, taking my husband's hand and putting it over my stomach, wishing that he could fix it, if I could fix it, if anybody could fix this. I was in the bargaining stage. I was always trying to find reasoning and understanding as to why this happened. I was fueled by guilt. I was fueled by shame. I was confused. I was angry. And when we finally got the blood work that showed that the levels started going down, I had to make the decision if I was going to keep the baby and have him choose when to go naturally, or if I was having to go in for surgery. I chose to keep him. So for weeks, I went through life trying to continue on as if I had no pain to bear at all. And my girlfriend at the time, she was having a baby, and she asked me to be part of her pregnancy, to be her doula. And while she went through complications and nearly died, I was the one that had to take her baby, who she never got to hold, and help her and the baby and her husband get reunited. I was the one that had to teach her husband how to feed the baby, to burp, to swaddle, and I feel like I robbed her of those moments. So while she was going through surgery to try to make it through for her family, I was the one that had these moments with her son. It was a blessing and a curse. When she finally came to, I brought the two of them together, and I saw how beautiful their family was, and I was able to go back home. That was the night that I gave birth to my son in my bathroom tub. The moment of being so alone and giving birth to a child that doesn't cry, holding him in my hands and not understanding why, I don't wish that on anybody. As a society, I feel like it's my duty that I talk about my trauma and my pain and make it a purpose. I want to break the stigma. I want women to be able to express everything that they're going through, everything that they're feeling. I know for me, I felt so psychologically isolated. I didn't know how to go about my pain. I didn't know that anybody understood my pain. I felt so alone. And that's why it's so imperative for me today to create a platform where people feel seen, people feel understood, and people understand that everything that happens in your life is going to be for a reason. And my reason, and I believe so much for what happened with my son. I truly believe he sacrificed his life so that I can have mine, that I can grow, and that I can help others and teach others along the way what I have learned. The ups and downs of my emotions were the scariest things. I couldn't recognize myself. I couldn't recognize my behaviors. I couldn't recognize my choices. I couldn't recognize my thoughts. The whole time, the 3 years that I've been struggling since this time, I had to really explore my shadow side. I really had to explore and take the time to really analyze my life and how I would be able to move forward with the trauma, how trauma affects people, how you develop yourself through trauma. And I found the more that I spoke about it and connected with others about it, I realized how alone or how not alone I was. 1 in 4 women miscarry, and yet society has this large stigma on it. And now I want to spend my time making sure that women never have to feel like they are less of a woman for going through this, that they should not feel shame, they should not feel like they are blamed, and that whatever they are feeling, whatever emotions that they are going through, they are valid. And I don't want anybody to ever feel like it's their fault for situations that are out of their control. And I want to provide tools that can help you and others who are going through the same thing. That's, I guess, a little story of everything.
Wow. Hey, you went through a lot. There is nothing like losing a child and having to carry that baby in utero quite a few months before you were able to release him. But it sounds to me that you've really processed what this all meant. You said that he sacrificed himself so that you could live. It's a very interesting perspective because a lot of times women blame themselves when things go wrong, yet something worse could have happened if you had carried that baby to term. So if there is a woman who is listening to us right now, who's in a similar position or has gone through a similar experience and is trying to recover, what 3 nuggets of wisdom can you give? What would you have wanted somebody to say to you at that time?
It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It is as simple as that. When you're in the stages of grief, you're in the bargaining stages, you're in the exploratory stages. I remember trying to grasp at straws, trying to understand why it all meant. And I keep on repeating what my doctor told me: divine mercy, divine mercy. There's far greater to our understanding. And I did anything and everything I could possibly do. But just know that you are not alone. There are people and women who have been through the exact same thing. Some, like myself, who are open to talk about it. Please reach out at any point in time. There are resources through your local communities that you can use. There are mental health advisors that can help you. And I think one of the biggest things is to not feel ashamed. And don't live in a fear-based mindset. So when you have these dark thoughts and when you are experiencing these deep emotions, feel them to your core. Don't suppress them. Allow yourself the time to grieve. Allow yourself the time to process. No one can tell you how to process your trauma, and no one can give you a timeline or how and when your processing should end. Do what is best for you, that is healthy for you and your loved ones around you, and never feel that you cannot speak about it, that you don't have a voice, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah, that's a very, very powerful message. I lost my second pregnancy, and I remember my doctor saying to me, this was nature's way of quality control, that something could have been wrong with the baby. And my husband was away at the time. I was alone. I had 2 kids by then, and it was like, why is this going wrong? Why now? So you did mention earlier that this happens to so many women. A lot of women lose their pregnancies. And what people tend to forget is the minute you find out you're pregnant, you're already attached to that child. That's the thing about being a mother and carrying a child in your womb, right? You are already attached to that baby before you even see it. It's growing inside you. In Africa, we have a saying, I'll see if I can translate it, but vana vangu ura wangu means my children are my intestines. They are that much a part of you. They come from you. They are in you. And that's why it's such a difficult tie. It's difficult to sever yourself from those children, whether they live or whether they die. The other beautiful thing that you said is about grief, and that we have to take your time to process it and to allow those emotions to come. I had a very interesting friend who has helped me manage my emotions throughout my life. He said that your emotions are like your children. When your children come to you, they want your attention. You never push them away. If anything, you pull them close to you, you give them your attention, and once they've got what they need, they move on. So it's the same with our emotions. They pass through us. So sometimes when you're feeling that sadness and that grief, you just have to sit with it for a little bit. Don't fight it, because it's when you fight it that you really start spiraling and going down.
Yes.
So many lessons that you've shared with us today. It's such an honor to meet you. So did you go on to have any more children? Where are you now? How are you emotionally?
So I have Jack. JD was my last pregnancy, which is a son that I had lost. So I have 3 children who were born prior to Jack. So for the past 3 years, I've honestly been grieving and I've been healing. And again, I really had to take the time. And thankfully, this is probably I'll be the only person that says this. I was blessed with a global pandemic where I was forced to sit with myself. I was forced to really look inside. I wasn't able to distract myself any longer. There was nowhere else to go but inside. And so not only, like you said, my emotions were here, my feelings were here, and I had to take the time and I had to look them directly in the face and my shadow side, and finally confront all the things that were not serving me or the people who I loved. And so I spent the past 3 years, and will continue, healing never ends, and learning and growing and developing never ends. But I really had to take the time to learn how to regulate my emotions and master emotion regulation and distress tolerance, and learn about primary adaptive emotions. A lot of the times when people try to heal a certain aspect of their life, they may like, oh, I'm angry. And they think that they're trying to resolve the anger. But the primary adaptive emotion might just actually be sadness. So a lot of the times when you don't fully understand your emotions, you're actually not healing the root of the real emotion that's causing a reaction. So I had to take a step back and learn everything that I was avoiding to learn, or that I was too afraid to learn. And when you're going through the healing process, which again is never ending, it takes a lot out of you emotionally, physically, and mentally. And again, I talked about briefly, but I made a lot of really poor decisions in my trauma and in my grief that were unrecognizable, and it wasn't something I would do. And it was very not in my character. But in order to go up, I had to reach my rock bottom. So what I'm doing now is just spreading awareness. I wrote an article about my entire story, and now I just want to spread that awareness and empower women and empower people to just be their authentic selves. I want people to understand that it's okay to feel your feelings, and it's okay to showcase those emotions. And the more we as a society judge others and use apathy instead of empathy, and not understand that we truly are one, this is where the problem lies. I created a show, it's a little bit over a year old now, with over 70 episodes, called Trials and Tribulations, which I host on Wednesday nights on Instagram and YouTube Live. And Trials and Tribulations is where I have a guest on, and we just talk about their trials and tribulations and how they got to where they are today through that. And the one thing that I found through speaking with people, such a diverse range, from celebrities to homeless drug addicts, that we are all the same. We are not different. We might physically look different, but we all feel the same. We all have the same insecurities. We all want the same, we all have human truths that are the same. And my goal is to end stigmas, to encourage empowerment and empathy, and to bring everyone together as one.
That is amazing. I was looking at the picture of your photo shoot, and it's a very surreal image. And I'm so glad that you did capture that moment and not try to, push it away or try to forget that it happened. It's an absolutely amazing image.
Thank you. It's such an image that I still look and I have tears in my eyes, because I remember what I was feeling when he took those photos. And I remember he was so professional about it. And he was like, my wife has gone through the same thing. I understand if you don't want to continue with the photo shoot. And I said, what better way to capture him, capture the moment? I'm still his mother. He is still my son. And even I was still able to hold him, but he was inside of me. And yeah, this photo is everything to me. And I'm just so happy that I would recommend this for any woman. It was very hard to do in the moment, especially the day of, very shortly after hearing the news. But how I processed the trauma, I'm very happy with how I did it. My son and I wrote a book together, and he wrote through miscarriage through the eyes of a child. Wow. And it's something that I would love to publish one day. It's one of my goals. And it kind of made me realize that the trauma of a miscarriage isn't just about the mother or the father. It affects your community. It affects everybody around you. And my son, every single day, while we were waiting for me to give birth to him, he would come and he would put his hands and his head on my stomach. And he was like, I miss you. Run back home. Come home. I want to play with you. He was so excited to be a big brother. And to this day, he's like, Mommy, come on. I want to be a big brother. I want to have a little brother. And it breaks your heart. But that's when I realized that it's not just about me. And I had to help him heal and give him the time and the process for my son to understand what life is, what death is.
Yeah.
And that's something very hard to explain to a child.
It is. It sure is. Kaye, I could talk to you forever. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence today. And thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story. I believe that as women, we can change the world one story at a time, one woman at a time. Hopefully, there'll be a woman out there who picks up on this video interview and sees a bit of light at the end of her tunnel. My last question for you is this. If time was an illusion and I could take you into the future, you're now 100 years old, you're surrounded by your children and your great-grandchildren, and you're sitting in your rocking chair, the sunset is there. If you could have a conversation with the future you, that amazing woman who's leading you there right now, what would you say to her based on how you're living your life right now?
Oh, I would just say, I hope you followed your soul. If I am surrounded by my children and my grandchildren and all of my loved ones, I know I did something right. And at the end of the day, if you're surrounded by people who love you and you love in return, what's greater than that? And I think that's what's so exciting about life. I used to be very fearful of the future. I used to love having control of everything, of every aspect. Because if I had control over everything, then nothing could go wrong. Or if there was something that could go wrong, I would already know about it or would anticipate it. And now, because of the adjustments that I've made in my life and how I'm living my life now, I wake up every day and my goal is simply to love others, to learn something new every day, and to choose happiness. And I have no idea what the future is going to bring. And that excites me. And I hope my older self just continued to choose happiness and following her soul and knowing that no matter what people say or think or do, I just stay true to myself and continue to put my family and my loved ones first while staying authentically me.
Wonderful. Happiness is truly a choice. You're right. And it's making that conscious choice on a day-by-day basis. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you to our amazing audience who tune in every day to this show. If you know somebody who has gone through a struggle similar to this, please share this video. I'll be back again tomorrow with yet another amazing guest. Kaye, don't go away. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, everybody, wherever you are in the world. Bye for now.